What is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, back with a Sea of Stars review. And after finally beating the game, the actual true ending of the game, I'll just safely say this. If you are a fan of old school retro RPG games, then this is your game definitely. And I highly recommend going out there and buying this game. If we're at a $35 price point, in my opinion, it's honestly a steal. And this is definitely one of those indie games you want to give a lot of love and support for, because it definitely shows a love letter to the whole school style of RPGs. But let's get into why SeaOfStars is so much fun and great. Basically, if you don't know, SeaOfStars is an old school style turn-based RPG game with some of the most beautiful just backgrounds and renders I've seen in a long time. This style of artwork, and not just with the enemies, but also just the environments you go to. This is a very appealing game to see on the eyes. Like, you have so many lustrous environments, so many unique and intrinsic enemy types and different variations, and honestly, I'm just blown away by just how good it looks in that old school style of RPG that was definitely famous back there in the golden age RPGs, definitely in the 90s. And in this game, you go to a lot of different areas, so you definitely have a wide variety of just different environments to look at, whether it's on like a rocky plain or just, out in the tropical beach paradise, or out in the ocean, or sometimes maybe in a crypt, or maybe even going in the skies or something. You have so many different beautiful and unique environments, so you always feel like every new area you go to feels fresh and not like so repetitive. So I feel like they did a good job of like changing up over time as you get so many different unique areas, but not just the areas and just how you go about them. As in the game, you'll encounter different ways to traverse and move, not just on the world map, but inside the map itself, whether you're traveling on boat or flying, or you're just grappling with your grapple hook in all kinds of different areas. Like in this crypt here, you definitely feel like as you progress through the game, you're learning more things just in terms of movement and how you get about. And I feel like that makes this game so much fun. And it's not just about getting from point A to point B. Sometimes you'll find areas you can't get to at that point in time, but later on, eventually, you'll be able to come back and maybe get some key items you may have missed, or maybe you just learn an ability that you didn't have at a certain point in time that you can go back and use. So it's always cool to back travel and go back to things. You even get a cool little mechanic if you catch enough of a certain item to let you know which items you're missing or important stuff in a certain area on the world map. But as I said, the environments, and they have a lot of variety. As I said, you go everywhere, not just on the sea floor on the bottom, not just in the skies of the heavens. I mean, heck, you even technically go to space, so you're all over the place. And I really feel that variety and just traveling all over the place really does this game a huge justice. But it's not just variety in terms of where you go and what type of areas you're interacting with. The variety goes to what I think is probably the overall best part of this game for me, and the part that got me addicted to it, which is the combat. The combat is absolutely awesome in this game. So it's turn-based combat, but it's not simply just press a button and that's it. You have a lot of things you can do, like combinations where if you do your timing right, you can get more out of the attack. Obviously, when you attack normally, if you time it right when you press the X button, you can obviously do a little bit more damage, but also you can take less damage if you time the attacks when the enemy hits you. You got to get good though, because all enemies hit at different attack patterns depending on which type of attack you're doing. But I think where this game really shines is when you do the boss fights. Every time I see a boss, and by the way, I love the boss, how they look. The bosses look so intrinsic. Every time I see a major big boss, it gets me excited because they look cool. But also with the boss fights, I always feel like there's like a huge mechanic. It's like you gotta learn the whole mechanic of how the boss works if you're going to be able to defeat them. So it's not just simply, there's the boss, hit him until he dies. He'll have some type of mechanic where, in this case with the Necromancer, if you just attack the Necromancer, you're probably going to most likely die unless your stats are that ridiculous. But they're probably not at this point in the story when you fight them. You basically are going to have to learn that, hey, the Necromancer is going to keep summoning more spawns until you defeat the source of the spawns. So you're going to have to figure out that mechanic to eventually overcome the boss. And every boss has a different unique mechanic. I always like it how it seems like you get overwhelmed from the beginning. But as you struggle to survive, little by little, you start to weed down how impossible it seems at first to eventually you start to make it a lot more manageable. Also, it's also key you have these squares above the enemies that give you a chance of stopping a certain attack, or at least depowering it from a certain point so it's not as effective. And those attacks go with the combinations and different elements that the characters can use for battle. And one of the coolest parts I love about this game is this game has different combos, not just with the one character, but you can combine attacks with different characters. I think one of my favorite things in this game is seeing the animations of everyone's ultimate attack, and there's so many really cool ultimate attacks here. I don't know which one personally is my favorite, but it just seems like I'm just more wowed at watching them taking place than even what they necessarily do. But they are definitely a sight to see, and you just, as soon as you get a new ultimate attack, or even just a new combination, not necessarily have to be an ultimate attack with an animation playing out, it's just fun to see how it's put together and how it's used, and I think that's just the fun part about this game. Every time I unlock a new combo or ultimate attack, I'm so quick to see how it's used, how it looks, or what I might have to do to interact with. And that's what I think makes this whole battle system so fun. It's great to look at, but you're always interacting with it at the same time. In terms of the story, it's an easy enough story to follow. It doesn't have the most complex characters in the world, but it definitely did have some moments for me that I really liked. Like, especially, it had this emotional moment, especially with Garl, who probably is one of the better characters of this game. I definitely did get a little emotional here, so I give a lot of credit for making me feel something. That's one thing you want to feel in an RPG game is emotions, because it is, you know, a game that puts a lot of effort in the story, and I did enjoy the story and I could follow it, but it definitely had not just emotional moments, but also a few twists there. As I said, eventually you get to a point in the story where you get to different worlds and explore them, so I definitely like, you know, it changing on a dime, and I feel like that's what makes this game so fun, is that you go to so many different areas, you have a few twists, you have some emotional moments. So overall, I definitely was invested and satisfied. I never felt like it dragged at all for me personally. But ultimately, the thing I just turned back to this game, which I love it, is just the fact that it just never got to a point to me where I felt like it dragged or let me down. Every time I progressed, I was always interested to see, you know, what new enemy types we face. What new challenges would there be? And there's a lot of things, because you'll get to a point where you'll beat the game and then you realize there's more things to unlock, because there's actually an ending, and there's also a true ending that you got to do where you go back and fight different things. By the way, I just want to point this out right here. The music of this game I really, really love, especially with the final boss fight and the true final boss fight. They really go hard, but not just the boss fights themselves, also a lot of the areas. I really, really enjoyed a lot of the soundtrack. I've already addicted to listening to some of the themes already. So, and as I said, with an RPG game, you kind of got to have a great soundtrack, because hearing these themes while just traversing or battling definitely is a huge, huge bonus for a lot of people who love the RPG games in general. Overall, there's a lot more positives than there are negatives, and as I said, my only thing I can say that is a little bit of a negative for me is just that I wish there was more combos and more attacks and different styles, just because I want to see what type of unique ideas they could come up with the characters. By the way, the Sun Ring is awesome as heck, because this combines the two themes of the two main characters of the game. But overall, one cool thing to know is that this game is getting DLC, so maybe they can add more combination attacks and more attacks in general, just so we can see the cool animations all together. But overall, I'm really glad I went out and purchased and bought this game. I kind of came into this game really late. I didn't really follow behind the whole history of it, but I really did enjoy my playthrough. There's so many things to do outside the main story, many places to find, you know, hidden temples and different islands, and having arena challenges, having other type of stuff, so having mini games, everything you expect to see in RPGs, as well as just having a fun, enjoyable story, but also just the highlight of it, a very entertaining and engaging battle system. I highly, highly, highly recommend playing SeaOfStars, and for its price point, in my opinion, it's honestly a steal. It's beautiful to look at. It's a great love letter to old school RPGs, but I feel like even people who aren't necessarily RPG fans can easily pick this up and play it. Go out there, support, and buy this game. You will not regret it. But that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and hopefully I can see you guys back on the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you all later. Peace.